Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Welcome along to NUFC Matters. Those were the days, and as always, joined by George Mitchell, who's going to take us back in time in his Geordie TARDIS to look back at days gone by. And this season has been an eventful one so far. And as we come to the climax of it, I think most Newcastle United fans, young and old, will know we actually did something quite rare. We won a trophy. So this episode has been split into two parts because it is quite a lengthy one, George says. So this is part one, George. And which season are we looking at?
1968-69.
68-69. Then over to you, George.
A season which is memorable for lots of reasons, but I think just about the pinnacle of Joe Harvey's career, I would imagine. But certainly he gave lots of... It gave lots of enjoyment to the fans, but it contains some matches which, in my view, in all the years I've been supporting Newcastle, were just out of this world. And some of the experiences were not likely to see again because it produced fantastic games and all sorts of weird experiences as well. However, as always, I like to set the scene for where we are in terms of time. And for those of you that are interested in Top of the Pops, well, Top of the Pops was the Beatles with Hey Jude. Number 2 was Those Were the Days, Mary Hopkin. And 3, Jumpin' Jack Flash, The Stones. And number 4, Delilah by Tom Jones. Well, there's a canny start to a top 10, I would say. And if you're a cinema goer, picture goer like Marjorie and I were, top picture of that year was Funny Girl, Barbra Streisand, 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is a one that Marjorie wouldn't go and see. I've seen it, but she wouldn't come with us. The Odd Couple, Jack Lemmon and his mate, and Bullet, which is a Steve McQueen famous one. And
that's who I was named after, George.
Really?
Steve McQueen, yeah.
Fantastic. Right, yeah, well, that's good. I mean, I've got my name's not after a famous film star, but after a famous uncle. My mother's brother ran away at the Air Force when he was 18 and came back to knock on the front door about 2 days before I was about to be christened. And I was going to be John Henry Gardner Mitchell. And because my Uncle George came home, it became George Henry Gardner Mitchell. So there you are.
Brilliant.
Not quite as famous as yours. Before I start let's have a look at some of the photographs. There's the squad. Now, some of that squad disappears and others come in because at the start of each season, it's always nice to have a look at what Harvey's doing. He was a keen one to change things around a bit. And for example, this season, tune in, as they call it in the statistics, Keith Dyson, Tommy Gibb, great midfielder, Gordon Heinsohn, Martin Burley, goalkeeper, Arthur Horsfield from Middlesbrough, Ben Arentoft, whose real name was Preben Arentoft, and John Hope. They came in and going out. Gordon Marshall, well, that's Gordon there, and he soon goes. Tommy Robson, Jimmy Ailey, who's on the end of that squad, it would go very, very shortly to Peterborough. Albert Bennett, who was would go as well back to Northampton, and Arthur Horsfield. But hold on, I've just told you Arthur Horsfield came in. Well, I keep saying through this series amazed how loyal Harvey is to his players, but the players have to be loyal to him, otherwise things don't go well. So on January 69, it's Arthur Horsfield in, and on May 69, it's Arthur Horsfield out. So I'm reliably informed that he and Joe didn't hit it off. Well, you can see what happens with people that didn't hit it off with Joe Harvey. So he was soon on his bike, as it were. Right, the next one, Steve. Now that's a repeat of a picture I showed last time, because it shows the start of the redevelopment of the ground. And I've only got it there as a talking point, because when I first showed that last time, I thought, along with all of that people in the Gallagher, thought, well, that marks the end of the row between the council and the club over the ground. Well, of course, it didn't. That's there because at the start of this season, believe it or not, we're in Europe, a chance to do something special for the club and the city. And the city council suddenly revise their plans and decide they want to take over the lease of the ground and turn it into a multi-sports complex, which would be shared by the club and the university. And, well, it just opened all the old wounds. It was ridiculous. And so much so it became a real public battle, to the point where eventually, believe it or not, the government got involved through the sports minister called Dennis Howells, ex-referee, got involved to try and become a peacemaker and all the rest of it. Well, the club decided that in their wisdom, and I don't blame them, that they would have their say, and what they said was, right, if that's what how you're going to deal with, we'll just go back to this land on Sandy Lane in Gosforth and build a brand new stadium there to pop us at James's Park. Well, that really did open the flood barriers. The Freemen got involved again. Dennis Howells set up a committee to look at the issue, and at the end of it, they came out with a sensible solution, which gave Newcastle United a long lease at St James's Park, and some plans to develop in the way that they wanted. So the council left that argument very sore indeed, because they had tried to get people on the board and all sorts of things. But you think to yourself, well, here's the start of a season which could be monumental, and we're having this open row again, which is absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, it ended happily enough for the club, and but it took a long time to heal the wounds with the council. And I'm reliably informed that in the background and how the government got involved was a new local MP called Jeremy Beecham, who did some reporting apparently, and that's how the government got involved. But anyway, it settled, and we got a long lease and a chance to redevelop St James's the way we wanted to, and to start off on this season in Europe. Right. Next one, Steve, is David Craig. I've picked out one or two unsung heroes when I do these things, because David Craig, to me, never gets a great headline, but certainly one of, if not the best right back we've had. Northern Irishman, played a lot of internationals, and he was a nice guy. Nice guy. I only met him briefly when he was very young, but a nice guy. And as I say, and there he is in his newspaper shop in North Shields. That went after he retired. That's what he decided to do, which coincidentally he opened just before our Neil bought his first house in North Shields. So that's where Neil was to go for his paper for a while, and he used to get all sorts of information off David Craig as well. That's something that hasn't stopped. He's still getting information, but never mind. And that's the story of the first cup. But it's a nice read if you can get hold of a copy. I don't think there are many copies around now. Have you got it, Steve? At all?
Yeah, I've got it. And you can get it on eBay. Jim Jeffrey wrote it. It's a fantastic book. I mean, it's just part of our history. And
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
fantastic.
somebody at the doorbell. Oh, God.
Well, if you need to get it, I'll play the ads.
Right. Okay, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to head over to the ads while George goes and answers his front door. A big thanks to our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead. Their phone number is 0191 478 2730. You can email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or go to the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists based on Nunn Street. The GOHD.com is their website. And thanks again to 3 Property Investments, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the North East. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give them a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeastproperty and phil.reed_northeastproperty, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to the lads at Mr. Vicky's Handmade in Cumbria. These are hot sauces and you can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or place an order by ringing 01768 210 102. Thanks also to the lads at Blowhole Brewery, a fine amount of ales available from their website, www.blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe, hit the badge in the corner and you can subscribe for free. Still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify and the rest. And if you want to become a member, click join underneath this video, or you can put your smartphone over the QR code. It will take you to the membership section of the website. If you choose to go that way, then you will get a pen, a cup, a scarf and a membership card and entry into the monthly draw for a one-off payment of £25. We also give you something for free. If you want a car window sticker, email john@nufcmatters.com and he will send you one if you are a subscriber. We also help the food bank on here. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is the match day bucket. If you go there, you can make a virtual donation at any time of the year. And don't forget, Peter Beardsley Soccer School, October half term, Monday the 24th to Friday the 28th of October. You can book now, peterbeardsley.soccerschool.com. Peter's also running Monday night training on the 26th of October. Again, the same website. And if you want to meet Peter Beardsley, well, you've got 3 chances. Newcastle Legends game, Friday, October the 14th. The Peter Beardsley talk-in is taking place after the game. Tickets for this are available from nufcmatters.com. Adult admission is a £5, junior admission is £2. The talk-in is adults only, and that is a tenner. And the events are all taking place at the Fox Hunters Pavilion in North Shields. We've got Peter Beardsley available, tickets available for the St Dom's Catholic Club show. You need to go straight to their website and you just buy your tickets there. And for this one at the Irish Centre, tickets are available now on nufcmatters.com. Don't forget, Supermax at the Dog and Parrot, every pre-match and every post-match, every home game. And John Gibson and John Anderson are at Pumphrey's pre-match only. If you did like our true crime stuff, it has all migrated to the True Crime channel. So get yourself across there on YouTube and subscribe today. And George is back in the room. Who was it, George? Who was it?
It was the postman with the registered letter, so it was quite important. So
good stuff. All right, great stuff. Over to you again, George.
Okay, sorry about that. I was talking about David Craig. Sorry, did I have a picture?
We just talked about the book, mate. So
the book, right? Yes,
we're moving on now from the book.
Yeah, that's right. And as I say, and as you rightly say, a piece of our history. And if you get a hold of a copy, it's worth a copy. The next one is another like pamphlet thing, which is I've never seen that one. It was there on the internet. It looks as though it might have been from the club, but it's not one I've seen. You know, however, I think all of this is his history if people want to get hold of them. And the next picture, I think, is
first game. I think
West Ham
United.
West Ham United. And so we're starting really starting the season now, and it's one which people are looking with interest. The one thing that surprised me about this season, when I look back at it, is that yes, we did well we won the FA's Cup eventually, but we also did quite well in the league as well. And the other thing is, typical Harvey team, 59 matches in the season, and we only used 24 players. I mean, that's just, I think modern players would struggle to cope with that, to be perfectly honest. And the net result is, when you look down the squad, you can see people like Wyn Davies playing 59 games, Pop Robson 59, Tommy Gibb 58, Wyn Davies 58, Frank Clark 54. I mean, that's really is incredible statement about their fitness, and of course also about Harvey's loyalty to the team. So we kick off the season with West Ham, who are always an attractive team to see, and we've got in our team, we start off with McFall, who's clearly Harvey's number one now, David Craig, Frank Clark, David Elliott, John McNamee, Ollie Burton, Pop Robson, Albert Bennett, Wyn Davies, Eric Ross, and Jackie Sinclair. And our team hardly varies through the season. The area where it does vary is occasionally on the wings, when people have been injured. For example, Jackie Sinclair was a good little winger, fast, but his speed sometimes got on big injuries. West Ham came with their star-studded side, including Bobby Moore, Billy Bonds, Martin Peters, Trevor Brooken, Harry Redknapp, there's a name to conjure with, and of course Jeff Hurst. So a really smart side to kick off our season with 37,300 at the game, and we got a 1-1 draw with Pop Robson scoring our goal in the first half, and Brian Diaz scoring West Ham equaliser just before the end. So after that, we're off to Sheffield Wednesday. I think that there might be a Sheffield Wednesday programme there, and there is. Well, there's anticipation that we might actually get something in this game, because Wednesday was struggling the season before, just avoided relegation. And we went to Hillsborough, 27,200 at the game, and we came away with a 1-1 draw. Our team was started off with McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, McNamee, Ollie Burton, Sinclair, Robson, Davies, and on the left side, suddenly Jim Ailey comes in with Tommy Robson, because the previous two had been injured. But as I say, hardly much of a change. Wednesday, well, although they weren't playing well, they had their stars. Goalkeeper Peter Springer too was played well with England, and then going down the midfield, they got Peter Eustace, Jim McCalliog, the Scottish midfielder, and centre forward David Ford, who they bought from us a couple of years beforehand. But anyway, we got a creditable 1-1 draw, which I think pleased everybody. We then went away to Burnley. Again, another side who we always seem to have a good game with. And our team's exactly the same as the previous game, except that outside left Tommy Robson's injured and Jimmy Scott comes in, the Scotsman Harvey bought from Hibs. Burnley, of course, is littered with Geordies, Harry Thompson, the goalkeeper, Fred Smith, the left back, Dave Merrington, who's in the defensive midfield, who came from the Sunderland area and ended up working for Sunderland for quite a lot of years. Dave Thomas, Ralph Coates from Ashton, and Arthur Bellamy also from the Durham area. So it's like home from home when you play Burnley. Burnley beat us 1-0 with a crowd of 13,500. I still sit back in amazement and think that with gate money, the only receipts, 13,500. How on earth did they run a football club on that sort of attendance? I mean, we were miserable if we got less than 35,000, and they're struggling on 15,000. Anyway, it's always a good talking point, I think, and tells you something about us as a club as well, I think. Next, we go away to Chelsea, sorry, we've got a home game against Chelsea. I haven't put all the home programs up because they're all the same. It's just a blank picture. There's not even an action picture to look at. So I didn't put them all up. So Chelsea come and we're expecting a tough game. And it's always an interesting game, which is reflected in the crowd of 40,000, just on 40,000. And it's a good game, an interesting game. And I remember being at this game, in fact. Our team was almost as red, you could say. McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, McNamee, Burton, Sinclair, Pop Robson, Wyn Davies. Dave Elliott slipped into the midfield on the left side. And in comes a young man on the left wing called Jeff Allen, who's a talking point at the moment because of the interest in his offspring in the current team. And Chelsea, well, star-studded to say the least. Peter Bonetti in goal, Chopper Harris at fullback, Eddie McCready in the midfield, Alan Birchnall, who's become an England star, Charlie Cook, a Scottish star. Very clever player, but a very touchy player. Charlie Cook got hurt. He used to sometimes go looking for the people that hurt him and got sent off. John Hollins, Tommy Baldwin, who was a Gateshead lad, and Bobby Tamblyn, and the centre forward, Peter Osgood, who was an England player eventually, but a very talented footballer. So we get a 3-2 win against Chelsea, which is everybody's really happy about. 2 Pop Robson goals, a Tommy Gibb goal, and Tamblyn and Birchnall for them. It set off with Tamblyn scoring for them. Tommy Gibb equalised. Birchnall put them back in the lead, and then Pop Robson came up with his 2 goals to give with a 3-2 victory, which was making everybody in the Gallagher corner feel quite happy. And then, of course, we have another home game with against Everton, and it's having had that win against Chelsea, everybody thinks, well, we should be able to take Everton as well. It wasn't that easy. Everton came and give it a good go. 38,900 at the crowd at the game, and it ended up 0-0. But still a good game, although it was 0-0. Our team, as read, McFall, Craig Clark, etc. Jeff Allen still on the left wing. And then the Everton team, they have a number of characters, starting with their goalkeeper, Gordon West. It's funny, Everton quite often had characters as goalkeepers, and we're back there now, aren't we? With Gordon West and Brian LeBone, a centre-half, England centre-half. Howard Kendall in midfield, creator, playing for England, and a lad from Chesley Street. Colin Harvey and the World Cup player Alan Ball in the midfield, and centre forward in this game was a young Joe Royal, who became a permanent fixture with Everton and got a few games for England as well. And on the wing, a young man called Jimmy Husband, who played for Newcastle Boys before he went to Everton. So we get a 0-0 off Everton, and I don't know what the fixture makers were thinking of this season, but we have a third home game against Nottingham Forest, and again, Forest weren't pulling up trees the season before, and we thought, well, surely we'll get something out of this. Well, we did, but it was only a draw. 34,600 at the game, and we got a 1-1 draw with our team. As I've said, without change again, with Jeff Allen still on the left wing. Forest have some changes from the season before, but they still got Bob McKinley, Peter Hindley, and in the midfield, suddenly, who just disappeared off our squad, that picture at the beginning, a man called Dave Hilly, who Mr. Harvey had decided could move on, and John Barnwell on the left side of midfield, who was another local lad from Seaton Delaval. It was a good game, and needless to say, Dave Hilly had a good game, as they usually do when they come back to St James's Park. But a 1-1 draw kept going in the right direction is the important thing. Next was an away game, but against Sunderland, and there's the programme. It was a strange game because Sunderland the season before missed relegation by the skin of their teeth. They didn't have a very good season. They'd added to their squad 49,800 at the game, which in itself tells you something, because normally derbies are over 50,000, whichever place they are. And everybody at Newcastle and the Newcastle end gets very cocked because Pop Robson gets a goal in 28 minutes, and everybody's thinking, well, let's get the win. And looked like we were going to get a win until 20 minutes from the end, a young man called Colin Suggett, who ought to get to know even better later on in his career, equalised and gave Sunderland a point. We still should have won this match. We had enough chances to take the points, but I keep saying 3 points, 2 points in these days actually, to take the 2 points. Our team, well, as read, McFall, Craig Clark, etc., and still Jeff Allen playing on the left wing, except he was injured in the second half and had to go off. And Jim Ailey came on instead of was substitute for him instead of Jeff Allen. Sunderland's team, well-known players, all of them: Jim Montgomery, Martin Harvey, Len Ashurst, who went off just before the end and was replaced by Calvin Palmer, Charlie Hurley, Colin Todd, who was starting to make a name for himself, Ian Porterfield, of course, who was a Scots midfielder and made himself really famous when he scored the goal in that cup final. Ian Porterfield, George Hurd, who Newcastle fans took an instant dislike to because he went there instead of coming to us. We were chasing George Hurd. In fact, the story goes that we thought we'd sign George Hurd, and the directors came home cock-a-hoop, except that when they were on the train coming south, the Sunderland directors were on the train going north and persuaded George Hurd to change his mind, which went down a bomb in the Gallagher corner, you can imagine. But never mind, that's what happened. Colin Suggett and George Mulhall on the wing. Two good teams, but one struggling at the wrong end of the league, and a point for us was good, and we really sitting nicely in the middle and with the possibility of going up rather than down, which has been our problem the previous 2 or 3 seasons. We now go to away game at Southport, which is the second round of the League Cup, and now this is a tournament which is it's a dead knell for Newcastle up to now. I don't think we've got beyond the third round, sometimes never beyond the second round. But Southport, everybody thinks, well, surely to goodness we can beat Southport, even if it is at Southport. Well, we do, and that makes a nice change. We beat Southport 2-0. Pop Robson and Jackie Sinclair score the goals. And the team, it's Harvey puts a full team out. He's not going to send any reserve team in case they get knocked out again. And he said the full team. And in the Southport team, there were 1 or 2 characters who are kind of ex-Premiership and Championship players who are on their way out, like Arthur P2 played for years for Stoke, and Eric Redrobe, who played for one of the big London clubs. I think it was West Ham. Fred Molyneux, who played for Liverpool for a while. So they had one or two good players in, but just not enough to knock us out the League Cup, thank goodness, because it'd been a real killer for us over the years. So we then get rid of the League Cup when we're making an advancement in that, and we go to away game at Coventry, and everybody thinks, well, surely we can get something out of this game. Coventry aren't that special. We don't. Coventry beat with 2-1, and 34,000 at the game, and in that particular season, that was Coventry's biggest crowd when they played us, Jackie Sinclair scored for us in the 8th minute, and everybody thought, well, we're on our way here. But Joe Baker, Jerry Baker, the centre forward, who had a good reputation, scored the equaliser, and then just on 80 minutes, Ian Gibson, who was a left winger of theirs, who was quite a decent player, scored the winner. Our team, well, it was our team as per usual: McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, McNamee, Burton, Sinclair, Robson, Wynn, Davies, Elliott, and Jeff Allen. Bill Glazier in the Coventry goal was a character and made quite a name for himself. And Brian Hill, who they got from, I think, came from Bolton. They introduced a young forward who, he was a pain in the backside, is what I read about this. They called him John Tudor, would you believe? And we'd get to know him really well in a year or two's time. It's interesting when somebody plays well against us and Harvey sees them, he obviously logs it away in the back of his mind and thinks, we'll have him at St James's Park shortly, and that's the sort of thing he did. So anyway, 2-1 loss to Coventry. It wasn't the end of the earth, but it was disappointing. We now have a home game against West Brom. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Is there a programme for Feyenoord next? Yeah, that's it. We're now really into the Fairs Cup round starting, and we've got a home game against the Dutch champions, and what a good game it was. Fortunately, it was a great game for us because our team excelled themselves and beat Feyenoord 4-0. Jimmy Scott, Brian Robson, Tommy Gibb and Wyn Davies scored the goals. But the man of the match was Wyn Davies. It was a foreteller for what was going to happen for the rest of this competition. The Dutch defenders were just scared of Davies. Every time he got up, they were trying to pull him down. So if we weren't going to score goals, we're certainly going to get lots of penalties. And the team just played well, and Wyn just led the line and fed it off to others.
Now, we've got a couple of pictures here as well from the game, I think.
That's it. That's true. That's it. And that's a diving header from Pop Robson. Yes, yeah. And he and that's him again, right on the goal when I think that's when Wyn Davies' goal goes in just before the end.
Just making sure.
No, that's right. Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. He was on the post just in case it didn't happen, and that's the internal pages of the program from the return match later on. So, but let's they'll come in a minute or two. We will then end up with a home game against West Brom, and everybody thinks, well, this will be a good game. Always is West Brom. Well, it was, but we lost 3-2 and kind of knocked the stuffing out of everybody. But everybody's saying, oh well, it's this Fairs Cup. It's got the team tired and all this sort of thing. Well, it did. I didn't. West Brom beat with 3-2. 35,000 at the game, and our team unchanged as per. And with West Brom, well, they have a range of celebrities in that team, but the ones that matter are all forwards. Jeff Astle, centre forward, Tony Brown, midfielder, Bobby Hope, a midfielder. But then they introduced a little blonde midfielder called Asa Hartford, who was to turn out to be quite a clever player and played for England and played for West Brom for a long time. So a 3-2 loss against West Brom was, to say it was disappointing, putting it mildly. And we're then off to Amsterdam for the return match with Feyenoord, which was the photos you were shown. That's the programme there, or the inside of the programme anyway. I couldn't... and that's,
it's like a news sheet, isn't it? It's like a paper.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
A paper news sheet, isn't it?
It's more like a magazine. Yeah, it is like a newspaper. It's almost like a match day version of the Pink, if you like, But it's got all the details in, and there it is. Well, we held our own in Amsterdam. We lost 2-0, but it wasn't an absolute disaster that it could have been. But we came home 2-0, so went through to the next round on a bit of a high. Our team unchanged: McFall, Craig, Clark, Gabe, McNamee, Burton, Jimmy Scott, Pop Robson, Wyn Davies, etc. Harvey's very, very loyal to these lads. And looking down the Feyenoord team, there was a midfielder called Israel that played for them, was a big international, and Wyn Jansen was a Dutch international. But then a Belgian international who became very famous in the World Cup, called Boskamp, and made quite a name for himself in international football. So we come back and we're moving on to the next round with a optimistic look at things. So then we're off on a away match to Manchester United, and we that's it. We know this is going to be tough because Manchester United are playing really well, champions last year, and going to give us a tough time. And they do. They beat us 3-1. We flat had to deceive, of course, as usual. Tommy Gibb gets a goal, and then within a minute, George Best equalises, then makes it 2-1, and then just before half time, Dennis Lowe makes it 3-1. So we come away with our tails between our legs, but it was a good game, and we played reasonably well, is what the reports say. So everybody's thinking, well, it'll keep it'll not do too much damage. So then we go to the third round of the League Cup, and it's at Southampton. And everybody thinks, well, we've got a chance here, surely. Well, we had some chance and no chance because Southampton beat us 4-1. 13,800 at the Dell. Pop Robson scored our goal, but Mick Shannon scored 2 for them. Ron Davies and then an Ollie Burton own goal settled the scoring at 4-1. Our team was the full team. They played their usual side as well, with a smattering of top players. At centre half for them, of course, was our old friend John McGrath, who Harvey had just sold to Southampton the year before. Jimmy Gabriel, they got from Everton. John Sydenham, the right winger that was very, very dangerous in his day. Ron Davies, Mick Shannon, and then on the other wing, Terry Payne, the England winger who played for Southampton for years. So we were well and truly out of the League Cup again at the second time of asking. But it may have been a blessing in disguise. That's what people like to think anyway. The next game's a home game against Tottenham. And now Tottenham are playing well and are regarded by the pundits as real title possibilities. 30,400 at the game. And Tottenham come and it's a good game. I remember being at this particular game. I particularly went because there's some players that I wanted to see, like Jimmy Greaves. I mean, he was in the Tottenham team. It was always worth the entry money to go and see people like Greavesy. Our team, well, you could name it yourself. McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, McNamee, Burton. Keith Dyson slides in on the right wing. Pop Robson and Wyn Davis is injured. Jimmy Scott plays centre forward. And Dave Elliott and Jeff Allen. It's interesting, Jimmy Scott very rarely played through the middle, but Harvey decided that because Wyn was hurt that he would play Jimmy Scott, and I think he played him for his speed more than anything. But anyway, we got a 2-2 draw, and it looked like Tottenham were going to beat me because they raced into a 2-0 lead through Alan Mullery and John Pearce. But then just before the end of the game, 60 minutes on the hour, a corner, John McNamee heads a goal, and then on 72 minutes, Jeff Allen cracks an equaliser in from the edge of the penalty area with his very trusty left foot, and we're to get 2-2 draw against that Tottenham side was quite creditable, but we played quite well. The Tottenham team littered with stars: Pat Jennings, left back Joe Kinnear, who we get to know quite well, and Mike England, our centre half, Cyril Knowles, the England left back at that time, Alan Mullery, Terry Venables, Jimmy Pearce, Alan Ginsey in the Scottish centre forward, Cliff Jones, the Welsh winger, who's a high-speed runner, there's no doubt about that. And, of course, the one and only Jimmy Greaves to complete the team. And we did well to get a 2-2 draw against Tottenham because that was a good side. The next game we have is the home game against Leeds United. And Leeds are about where we are in the league, but being tipped to be possible champions this year, and they're starting to win a lot of games. 41,900 at the game. It's at James's Park, and lo and behold, we got beaten by a one goal headed in by none other than Jackie Charlton in the first 20 minutes. After that, it was end to end, but never looked like we were going to get an equaliser, and it never looked like they would get another goal either. Our team, well, don't need to read it. McFall, Craig, etc. Leeds, again, as always, littered with stars. Gary Sprague, Paul Beardley, Paul Rainey, Terry Cooper, Norman Bite Your Legs Hunter, Gated Lad, Jack Charlton, Johnny Giles, Irish midfielder, Billy Bremner, Scottish midfielder, Mike O'Grady, a tricky midfielder, and Peter Lorimer, a left or right winger. You could play on either side, and he could score deadly goals with either foot as well. And when Peter Lorimer hit it, you knew it stayed hit. And Eddie Gray, who was a very talented Scottish winger, very tricky, great dribbler of the ball. So we're now getting a bit of a sweat on with a couple of defeats on the trot, although we're still hovering about the middle of the league. And so we then are off to an away game at Nottingham Forest, and everybody's thinking, well, they give us a tough game at home, they're going to give an even tougher game when we go there. Well, they did, but we overcome them. We beat them 4-2. It was a bit of a surprising result, and they scored. We scored in the first half, 39-40 minutes through Keith Dyson and Pop Robson, and just after half time, and Story Moore, the talented inside for a midfielder, scored 2 to equalise. Now, lo and behold, just before the final whistle, Wyn Davies headed a 1 in 82 minutes. And then Alan Foggen slotted a 1 in to make it 4-2. Foggen came on for Jeff Allen as a substitute, because Jeff Allen got injured. Our team was, as read, the same as I've been reading out all the time. The Forest team, they had 1 or 2 new additions. Barry Lyons that bought from Everton. Joe Baker that bought centre forward from Arsenal. Jim Baxter that bought from Sunderland. But nonetheless, that we still beat them 4-2, which was a great fillip for our league position. The next game we go to is an away game at Ipswich. And there we are. Ipswich aren't pulling up trees either. They're the wrong end of the league at this time of the season, and it looks as though we knew that, and we beat them 4-1. Give them a real run around. And the star of the day was none other than the lad who got on as a substitute the last game, Alan Foggen. He did one of his left wing virtuoso performances, dribbling and shooting and making life a mystery for the defenders. And we beat them 4-1. They scored first, and it was the worst thing they could have done, because after that there was one-way traffic. Alan Foggen opened the score, and Keith Dyson, and then 2 from Pop Robson to make it 4-1. Our team, well, apart from Alan Foggen being on the left, it was the same team that's played just about the whole season, and Keith Dyson on the right. The Ipswich team, manager Bill McGarry, another name we get to know very well much later on. Mick Mills at fullback was an England player and had a good reputation. Colin Viljoven, the Dutch lad who was a great defender. Ray Crawford, the centre forward, played for England and was a really dangerous centre forward, but not on this day, thank goodness. And Danny Hagan in midfield. Frank Brogan was on the left side of their attack, on the left wing, and he was replaced because he got injured, and replaced by a young man called, well, not so young now and then, Charlie Woods, who we sold to Ipswich 2 seasons beforehand. On his way out of St James's Park. So we've not done so badly. That's a good turnaround for us. 2 good wins, and we're at home now to. We're at home now to QPR, and we got a 3-2 win against QPR, and it's 3 wins on a trot. That really is pushing us up the league. Dyson, Gibbs, Burton get the goals. Wills and an own goal from Bob Monk, who's in the team now. Because of some of the injuries, Bob Monk turns up at inside left, and typical Harvey. He fits people where he thinks they'll do a job, and as I say, Bob Monk quite nicely slots in and gets goal. We're now Liverpool away is the next game. There should be a programme. There is, and we go to Liverpool with. Well, it's always difficult, and they're like I've just mentioned some of the other strong teams. The pundits are looking at Liverpool as a possible league champions this season, and they've got a side that could easily do it. We go with our usual team with I'll read it for another time. McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, and then John McNamee's got a knock, and a young man called Graham Winstanley comes in, a local lad at centre half. Ollie Burton, Keith Dyson, Pop Robson, Wyn Davies, Bob Moncur, and Alan Foggan. So Harvey's persisted with Bob Moncur in forward midfield on the left side. It's a good game, but unfortunately, Liverpool just too strong for her. A lad called Evans and Peter Thompson score their 2 goals, and Tommy Gibbs scores our consolation just before the end. It's a good game. 46,000 at Anfield for this game, and as I read our team out, well, their teams, people probably remembers it back with some of these names. Tommy Lawrence, Chris Lawlad, Tommy Smith, the Anfield Iron, Ron Yates, Emlyn Hughes, of course, Ian Callaghan, Peter Thompson, Alan Evans, who scored one of the goals, Roger Hunt, Ian St. John, and Jeff Strong, who they got from Arsenal. So a defeat, but not a disgrace. We come out of it with a lot of credit. We're next into the next round of the Fairs Cup, and we're going off to Portugal to play Sporting Lisbon. And that's the front of that programme. Quite a different style altogether, but a strong team, Sporting Lisbon, because although they're in the Fairs Cup, they had a lot of experience in the Champions Cup, in the European Champions Cup. So it was a team to take care of, because otherwise we could end up getting a good thrashing. We didn't. It was a 1-1 draw, and the attendance is. I still have to look at this attendance 3 times for us to believe it. 9,000. I mean, this is a top team in Portugal at home. 9,000, and I thought the first half they've missed a 2 out or even a 5 out. No, 9,000, which is amazing. Lots of international stars playing with them. Celestino, Morias, Pedras, all top Portuguese players. And on the left side, Ernesto, who I think was a brilliant Brazilian international at the time. And but we held them 1-1, and everybody came home really, really tickled to death about that, because it was a game that we wondered whether or not we'd get anything out of. And to come home with a 1-1 draw in the Fairs Cup was great. And our team, well, predictable. McFall, Clark, Craig, Gibb, Graham Winstanley, Harvey kept faith in them, kept them there. Otherwise, the same as the team that had played it at home. So we're making progress in the Fairs Cup, and we've got a good result out of that one. The next game is Leicester City at home, and they're not pulling up trees. So everybody thinks, and certainly everybody in the Gallagher corner thinks, well, this is 2 points for nothing. Well, it was 1 point for nothing, because it was 0-0. Ironically, what I'm still never. I've read about this game, and again looking at the crowd of this one, 20,700. I mean, 20,000. That's the sort of crowd we get when we're rubbish, you know. And I still couldn't find out why. Yes, we'd had some interesting results, but we'd had some good wins. I mean, you know, we'd had Forest 4-2, Ipswich 4-1, QPR 3-2. Yes, we lost at Liverpool, but so what, you know. Anyway, what team stayed the same. McFall, Craig, Clark, etc. Graham Winstanley held his place, and Jackie Sinclair came back in, being fit, and Jeff Allen stood down again.
Were people saving for Europe, George, do you think?
It's possible, because I think something I'll touch on this later on is that this rapidly became known as the Budget Airline Cup. And that was because the Newcastle fans were booking budget airlines that would fly anything to go to these matches. So it may well be that people were putting money aside to go into Europe. Leicester's side, well, had its stars. Peter Shilton, of course, the goalkeeper. Graham Cross, Brian Potts in the rear guard. Michael Stringfellow and Alan Clark, Rodney Fern and Len Glover in the forward line. It was a good game. I remember being at the game, and with, as I say, with 20,000 in, it's like it's half. It's like it's empty. Never mind half empty. It felt like it was empty. But a 0-0 draw kept give a point and kept going in the right direction in terms of league place, especially when we've got our eyes on doing this cup and hopefully another cup. Next is an away game to Arsenal. I think there'll be a programme there. There is. And another game which is always a good game against a decent footballing side. I think there's one or two nerves about this one because, again, Arsenal are up there with the others thinking they've got a chance of the title. Well, we do. The lads played quite well. It was only a 0-0, but away from home and in London, a point's a point, as they say. And our team, easy, McFall, Craig Clark, ex-Tommy Gibb, etc. And the Arsenal team, with its strings of personalities, introduced a new goalkeeper called Bob Wilson, who everybody will know from his history on the television, as television commentator. And as I say, I've got to say, I have met Bob Wilson. What a nice man. I don't want to say any more than that. What a nice man. Terry McNeil, the Irish, Terry Neal rather, the Irishman at centre half. Ian Ewer, the Scotland, big blonde Scotsman at centre back. Bobby Gould, Jordan Ratford, George Graham playing in centre forward, and on the left wing, Geordie Armstrong, a Hebben lad playing for Arsenal. But a 0-0 draw at Arsenal at that time, going to Highbury, 34,100 at the match, was quite creditable, and as I say, kept us pointing in the right direction in the league, which was important if we're going to do anything else anywhere else. The next game was a home game against Manchester City, which I personally look forward to because I think our games against Manchester City have always been good, and including the cup final, etc., all the way through. There's lots of good games against Manchester City. This was a reasonable game, quite a good game. 36,400 at the match, and we beat City 1-0. And the goal scorer, none other than Wyn Davies. And our team, well, it's the usual team: McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, etc. And on the left wing, Jackie Sinclair, who gets a bad injury in the beginning of the second half. And Harvey, typical Harvey, he's got all sorts of players as substitute. And who does he put on? Graham Winstanley, a centre half, goes on for a left winger. I'm sure Harvey could explain it. I don't think anybody else could. As it happens at the game, Graham Winstanley did well, and they just reshuffled themselves, and it ended up with Bob Bunker spending more time out on the left than Graham Winstanley. But never mind, that's Joe Harvey for you. Manchester City, bossed by Joe Mercer, of course, a good friend and companion of Joe Harvey. Glenn Pardew at full-back, Mike Doyle, Tony Booth, old stager with them. Francis Lee on the right, making a name for himself. Colin Bell in midfield, who was becoming an England stalwart. He shifts, Mercer shifts somebody into centre forward. And then Neil Young, a young midfielder who's again becoming a star. And then on the left wing, a new left winger called Ian Bowyer. Good game against a good side, but we managed to beat them 1-0, and again we're pointing in the right direction. Our next game is the return game against Sporting Lisbon. And I think that there should be the programme, I think there, Steve.
There is. Just continue and I'll find it.
That's okay. And we're our team, well, it's McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, Burton, Monker, slight change there because McNamee's injured. Jim Scott, Pop Robson, Wyn Davies, Dave Elliott, and Keith Dyson. And 53,700 at this game. So the Fairs Cup's now taking a real interest in Newcastle. And there's a typical Wyn Davies picture of him getting up that header ball towards goal, and that's actually one of the one and only goal that we got, and it was Pop Robson who was mooching at the goal there. But again, as I said earlier, the Continentals didn't know how to handle Wyn Davies. He just was a box of tricks for them. They couldn't. They seemed in awe when he started to jump. The other thing I'd say, looking back at that Wyn Davies photo, is there's any modern centre forwards watching, look where his arms are, down by his side. Not hasn't got his elbow in the Sporting Lisbon's defender's throat or nose, as they do nowadays. There's all this modern day thinking that you've got to use your arms to get height. Well, tell that to Wyn Davies. I don't think he'd believe you, but never mind. That's hours of practice, training to get the jump like that. And I haven't been through it for about 4 years. I can tell you it works, but never mind. So we beat Sporting in Lisbon 1-0. Pop Robson's goal is a result of confusion caused by Wyn Davies at a corner, and it's early in the game, 10 minutes, so everybody thinks, well, maybe we'll get another one. Well, we didn't, and but it was an attractive game to be at. They played very well. All the stars playing: Celestino, Pedras, João Carlos, and so on, all in the team, and making it a very enjoyable game. Interestingly enough, occasionally, not well, throughout the match really, the Porto defenders were complaining about Wyn Davies and saying that he was pushing them about, and fortunately for us, the West German referee called Schuberg just ignored them, just carried on, which was great for us. But they obviously didn't like it at all. Didn't like it one little bit. Or as Clive Dunn says in Dad's Army, they don't like it up them. Well, they didn't like win up them either. The next game's an away game at Wolves, and it's a one which we hope will get a point out. Well, I don't know whether it was a hangover from the European game, but we got thrashed 5-0. We're never in the game. 25,400 at the game, and all the big guns at Wolves put one to the sword. Derek Duden, a big Irish centre forward, scored 2. Frank Wignall, who they got from Forest, scored a goal, and Peter Knowles, attacking midfielder, belonged to them for years, got the 5th one. So we had a pretty poor show at Wolves at 25,400 at the game. Our team, well, it was predictable, except that there was an injury to left midfield, and Dave Elliott came in and took that place. Otherwise, as read. We're next off to Southampton. No, we're not. Guess
Leeds.
what? Yes, well,
because what we said, well, we're going to do 2
yes,
parts to this. So
that's
my
all right.
final program I've got is Leeds.
That's fine, and that's great. But there's other games before Leeds. That's where I'm going, you see. And guess what, Steve? A friendly. a midweek friendly at Barnsley, and they contrived to lose against Barnsley 5-1. I mean, what preparation for a team that's in a European Cup and trying to win the First Division Championship. I've dug and dug, can't find out why we played this friendly. 10,000 came to look at it, so it was obviously important to Barnsley. I suspect it's for an ex-player who Joe Harvey might know or might not know, but it absolute killer. And then, of course, we have we come home from that Barnsley game to a home game against Southampton, and lo and behold, everybody's expecting a disaster. We beat Southampton 4-1. Southampton never in it. Dyson Robson 2, Pop Robson 2, Alan Foggan scored the goals, and Terry Payne scored those. Absolutely played Southampton off the park. 29,500 at the game, and the team: McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, Burton, Monkert, Gayson, Robson, Wyn Davies, Jim Scott, and Alan Foggan's back in because of injuries. And Southampton, well, despite having the all our stars in and our old centre half, John McGrath, centre half, they just weren't in the game. We absolutely walloped them. We then have an away game at Stoke, and we get beat 1-0. It was a nothing game. 11,500 at the game, and same team goes to Stoke, was played in the previous game against Southampton, but we contrived to lose at 1-0. And David Hurd, who they've just brought from Manchester United, scores the winning goal. And Stoke, of course, have Gordon Banks in goal, John Mahoney, Harry Burrows in the forward line, and David Hurd, who they've just bought from Manchester United. So that's a disappointing loss, but predictable one, I'm afraid. And then we were home to Ipswich. Now we Ipswich shouldn't be troubling us because they're well below us in the league. 26,400 at the game, and that's true. They don't. We win only 2-1, but it could have been 4 or 5. The chances we had. Wyn Davies scores both the goals, both beautiful headers, is my memory of it, and O'Rourke scores for Ipswich. And our team, well, very, very predictable with the loyalty Joe Harvey places in his teams. And as I say, Wyn Davies scoring the 2 goals. For Ipswich, their team is as it was when we played them at Ipswich, but didn't make any difference. We should have won that game by far more than 2-1. And we're now away to QPR, for which I couldn't find a program, which is why there's no program for them. And they surprise everybody. Go and get a 1-1 draw. 16,400 at the game. Alan Foggan puts with the lead in 18 minutes. And then just before the end, QPR centre forward, left winger called Bridges scores the equaliser. Our team, well, you wouldn't be surprised. McFall, Craig, Clark, Gibb, Burton, Bonker, Dyson, Robson, Davies, Scott and Foggan. And they get a very creditable 1-1 draw. In QPR, well, they've bought the England goalkeeper from Sheffield Wednesday, Ron Springett. And they bought Alan Harris from the brother of Chelsea's Harris. And a young man called Mick McGovern suddenly appears for QPR, who they bought from our neighbours at Sunderland. And Barry Bridges was the left winger who scored the goal. A decent game, but more important for us is a 1-0, a 1-1 draw, which gives us a point. And then we're off to Leeds, and that's the programme that you've got, Steve. And we're playing Leeds United, and we Leeds are the ones to beat. That's the way the league's looking at the moment. And if we can get something out of this game, would really be a feather in our cap. Well, we get beat 2-1, but that's no disgrace the way Leeds are playing at the moment. Lorimer and Madeley score their goals, and John McNamee gets a header in the from a corner right at the death, 89th minute. Madeley scores on half an hour. Peter Lorimer scores blasts a penalty in just after half time. When Peter Lorimer hit the ball, it stayed hit, believe you me. It was something else to see. And we got beat, but it was a very creditable performance against a team who were headed for the title. The team, well, as all the stars, Sprague, Hunter, Giles, Charlton, etc., Bremner, and then they introduced as a substitute, because Johnny Giles got hurt, a little man called Terry Hibbert. Now, he's somebody else, I think Joe Harvey must have put in the back of his mind, because he wasn't long before he was a Newcastle player, was he? Terry Hibbert came on as a substitute and played quite well, but he didn't need to play quite well. The others did the work for him. So we get a 2-1 at Leeds, and that nicely sets us up for the next round of the Fairs Cup.
Fantastic. Well, that's where we end part one, George.
It's a good start. And as I said at the beginning, I hadn't realised how well we'd done in the league as well as in the cup, and there's some good results in there, and the team's really playing some good football. The sad thing is that once again, our performance in the other cups, the League Cup and the FA Cup, it absolutely
left
drops.
to be desired. Okay, George, so, we'll finish it. We'll finish it there, fine. I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode. Cheers, George.
Absolutely. Bye bye.